Almost without exception, all of the pros say the lob is the most important shot. But how do players get a higher consistency and better lob when they're playing against their friends down the club? Tom, we are here with another episode, Padel School podcast, enjoying our studio. A big question that we get asked, and something that is the most important shot of the game, the lob. How can players improve the lob?
If they can improve the lob, you're going to be winning more matches, aren't you? It's, like you say, one of the most important shots in the game. And from my own experience, having spent a bit of time, I spent time training my lob specifically for a few weeks. I did lots of drilling on it, did a lot of points with it, and you see a massive difference between before and after. If you train that lob and you start hitting it well, hitting it with depth, you're going to start winning matches that before you could not win. Yeah, and I think it's understanding that the training of the lob is the way to go. How few people train the lob? Like you're talking about there about training the lob, but at the club level, you don't see many people training, and you definitely don't see many people training the lob. The only time players often hit a lob is to feed a bandeja or feed a short lob for their opponent to practice their smashes. And they're always short. They're always short. The warm-up lobs are always, and this is where the trap I fell into, is that I would think, okay, I'm going to hit some nice lobs in the warm-up so my opponent can hit some overheads. But actually, when you get into a match, you don't want to be hitting those. But if those are what the types of lobs you're used to giving, or at least practicing, then yeah, that's definitely not the way to improve. And often in training, and we do this a lot with training, you're like, oh, I really want to work on my vibra or my topspin smash. And so, we will go out and have a session, and if you're working on your vibra, I'm hitting like a basket of short lobs. And then we won't have any okay, can we practice the deep lob? Because also the deep lob, in terms of a drill, obviously in our drill book, we have loads of drills around the lob and how to use it and how to use it effectively. But a deep lob itself means that you are running back from the court and you are not then hitting any overheads. So it's kind of like, as a training exercise with a partner, unless you're doing a lob exercise, it's kind of like, well, you keep hitting it over my head. Like if you're trying to practice your smash and I'm working on my deep lob, it's frustrating for you as the partner to have that, right? It's almost like you've got to dedicate time, I think, to playing a deep lob. Yeah, if you're always playing deep lobs, it can get frustrating, can't you? Well, work on your smash behind the service line, like Tapia. That's, that's what you're forcing them to do. Yeah, but I think a lot of it is at the club level, there is a fear of overhitting the lob. And I was telling a story on one of our clinics about my daughter Freya, and she's only 5, so we do lots of little ball games, and we played 2 ball games with her recently, and Freya, so you'll know how this will go. But it's we're playing catch, and she's always right, let's take a step back, and we throw catch to each other, and me being her dad is I'm happy to throw the ball, I just don't want to hit her in the face, right? So I'm throwing the ball and we're going back, and as we go further back, I'm I don't want to overthrow this, because the ball hitting her in the face would really end that game, not the right way. So I'm always throwing it, and I'm always throwing it in front of her, and I'm throwing that ball, and every time she's going like this, she's like, Dad, throw it in my hands. And it's I'm trying to throw it in your hands, but I really don't want to hit your face, right? And then the next game we played was right, let's throw the ball in the bucket. So we both came at the one end, and we put the bucket down, and we threw the balls into the bucket, and we both overthrew the first one, and then we underthrew, and then we kind of found our range after 3 throws, right? And so if we took the 2 examples, throwing to her hands, I probably threw out of the 10, 7 short. With the bucket, I threw 2 or 3, missed, and then I found my range. And I'm using that as an analogy for people hitting the lob, because people are so afraid of hitting the glass that they leave it short all the time. Whereas if you watch the pros, they are treating their lob a bit like the bucket, in terms of they miss lobs. At the beginning of a match, they miss lobs. They overhit them, they hit them long, it goes into the bottom part of the glass, and they find their range. And within a game or 2, they are then hitting consistent lobs. And I think that is almost the approach that club players need to take, is don't be afraid to hit the glass.
go for your lobs, hit your lob deep. Like, you've got to find your range. If you start short with a short lob and then you just try and inch your way back, you're never gonna, all you're gonna do is play their smash in, and you're never gonna be hitting these deep lobs.
Yeah, I think for players, they need to differentiate between what's a good mistake and what's a bad mistake. And missing a lob deep is a good mistake. And I was on court recently with players, and we were working on that lob, and exactly like you said, a lot of them were hitting the lob short because of the mindset, well, at least the ball's in. And if I miss the lob long, then I haven't made them play. But like we know, and it's not just at the pro level, if you put lobs short, the chances are you're going to lose the point anyway. And for all of those players out there, intermediates hoping to get to advanced level, the difference might be your lob. It might simply be how deep can you hit your lob, how consistently can you hit it. And the one way of getting your range, like you said with those pro players, is you have to find your range. You have to, where's the limit? Just go out there and play lobs and say to yourself, right, every lob in this session, I'm going to miss long. I'm not going to miss a lob short. Every lob, I'm going to miss long. And you'll be surprised, when I've done that exercise before, players may miss the first couple, but almost straight away they start getting that range. And by the end of the session, you go, well, how many lobs have you missed deep? And the surprise is actually not that many.
Yeah, and actually it happens so quick. Like, it's within 10, 15 minutes, players are hitting great depth of lob, but they miss a couple at the beginning and they overhit slightly, and it's just accepting that that's part of it. And that's a big reason why at the pro level, when they win the toss, they elect to return. So their opponents come out and they're the ones who have to serve, because they can play lots of balls, they find their range, and they use the lob and they miss the lob, and it's not the end of the world. They know that it's range finding as opposed to a bad mistake. And it's right the way through. It's same beginner. Like, even at a beginner level, if you hit a short lob, someone's going to smack it, right? Like, I mean, that's what we see a lot, is lots of power smashes, and they could go anywhere. But at the beginner level, right the way up to pro level, is like you've got to practice and find that range with your lob. And I think it's the first part of this is not being afraid to do that, like not being afraid to find your range. And the second part of this is choosing a good time to do it, like choosing a good time to hit your lob. And obviously in paddle, the lob is attacking as well as defensive, but really the change is that it's an attacking lob. So it's often when it's a short ball and you're going to come forward, instead of trying to rifle a passing shot past your opponents through a small gap, you just use a nice lob, give you and your partner loads of time to take the net. And, you know, we often say play that lob within your capabilities, meaning play it at a time that you know you could hit a good lob, right?
Yeah, it's playing it at a time. But when you said choose a time to use it, I actually thought you meant a session, because before we go into when a player should use a lob, I think also to train your lob, maybe don't think about this if you're playing the final of your local tournament. Maybe this is something that you find a training partner. Maybe it's 2 players, maybe it's 4 players. That's exactly why we've got our drill book, which we've got a note to in the show notes, a link in the show notes. But it's about finding those sessions where you go out and say to the group or your partner, look, let's just both work on the lob today, and let's take some drills, let's go for an hour and let's just practice hitting that deep lob. Because it's understandable, right? If players have got a game coming up, maybe it's a big game, they don't want to lose. I think it can be a challenge to go out there and say, okay, I'm actually going to accept that I'm going to miss my lob deep and really go for that lob. You might lose the match as a result because you're trying something out, you're experimenting. So yeah, when you said, when the time to use it, actually there's a time to train it as well, isn't there?
Well, I think there you said if it's a big match, but I mean the majority of people are not having a big match every time.
Every match is a big match.
every match is a
we all know that.
A must-win
every
match.
Is a must-win
but there's loads of matches that is like social with your friends, and it's like, right, say to your partner, hey, today should we both work on our lob? Like, let's both work on our lob. Let's hit through it. If we're going to miss in the first, and you could set it in the first 3 games. A mistake where you overhit your lob into the glass is not, like, we're not going to get on each other's back about it. Like, let's just, go for that approach and use a social game as your training. I mean, yes, in the ideal scenario, you take one of our lob drills from the drill book, you go out with a training partner and you work on that lob. Like, that would be the best. But then almost implementing it in a game is bring it into a social game, use that lob, you and your partner, get used to using it together and accepting that there's going to be 1 or 2 errors before you
bring it into the game, and then bring it into the game, like with all of paddle, is playing the sensible shot, right? Playing it at a sensible time, playing it when you know that you've got a high likelihood of making it, and also a high likelihood of taking the net or whatever you want to do on that next shot.
Yeah, players should be avoiding the temptation of they're stuck in a corner, they can't get a good contact on the ball, and they're using a lob as a way of just surviving in a point, isn't it? That's what we see a lot with players, is not using it at the right time, using it as a way to take the net. That's what they should be doing, and sometimes we see a lot of players, they're just in trouble, and their last resort is a lob, and that's usually when those lobs will go short and the point is over anyway.
Yeah, and keep it simple, right? Like, so often the ball's coming up and people think they're going to do a twirling back boast against the glass, and they're going to spin it as a lob in the corner. Like, we've got a course with Martin Deneno on hitting the lob, and his one piece of technical advice was keep it simple. And I think he calls his the shovel, or in term of endearment for his lob is the shovel, but it's just like push the ball flat and high to get that distance and get that accuracy.
And all those tennis players out there that have a bit of a wristy lob from tennis, the top spin that is supposed to go over the opponent and go away from the opponent, that's also a technique or a habit that tennis players need to change. They're not naturally in that flatter shovel technique.
Yeah, they've got to practice coming underneath the ball and hitting it flat, so you almost get like that up and under type contact on the ball as opposed to up the back of the ball, and then it bounces off the glass nicely for the opponents to hit an aggressive bahada.
And one thing's for certain, if you're a player and you want to take your game to the next level, the one shot that will help you get there is the lob.
100%.